upholding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
We've signed a climate convention on the importance of economic instruments and free markets. Were included in this mammoth Agenda 21 document and the Rio Declaration. Let me be clear on one fundamental point. The United States fully intends to be the world's preeminent leader in protecting the global environment.
Coming up, Technocracy News. Welcome to Technocracy News and Trends. I'm Patrick Wood. Today is April 15, Tax Day 2019. Welcome to the dystopian world of technocracy. There is a recent book called The Feed, which proposes that brain chips will be implanted into human brains that will interface with the global internet, not only to receive data, but also to transmit data, like what you see and what you think and what you're saying and so on. And that the world essentially will become one big human internet. This is a scary book, a frightening book that's being made into a TV series. We wrote about that earlier in Technocracy News. But the article here at hand says real human brain cloud interface coming within decades. Some scientists say yes, it is. It's not science fiction at all. And indeed, if data can be pumped into your brain, then your personal sensory data can also be pumped out, just like the scenario in Channing Powell's upcoming series, which is called The Feed, based on the book. And it might figure that Ray Kurzweil is in this article. He's kind of the father of modern transhumanism, if you will. At least he's the scientific justification for it, because people consider him to be a genius in such matters. And what the article proposes is the cortex in the cloud could be matched to a cortex in your brain that would allow matrix-style downloading of information to the brain. A quote, a human B/CI system mediated by neural nanobiotics could empower individuals with instantaneous access to all cumulative human knowledge available in the cloud, while significantly improving human learning capacities and intelligence. Wonderful. One thing that they don't bring up, of course, is that knowledge does not translate into wisdom in any way, shape, or form. Wisdom is a classic human characteristic that simply cannot be duplicated by any machine or artificial intelligence program, ever. Knowledge is great. Wisdom is better. Knowledge without wisdom is nothing. It's just foolishness. So how they're going to translate all of this into wisdom, human wisdom, is still completely unknown. And you might guess that as the cashless society spreads to stores around the country, that the backlash against this is getting fierce. Citizens, shoppers, consumers are saying not just no, but heck no. Even Amazon now has retreated on its Amazon Go stores, which were completely cashless. Now they've decided they need to accept cash. Could be their sales were struggling a little bit because they didn't accept cash. Well, citizens have decided they like cash. They want it. They're going to keep it. And those stores that don't line up with it are going to find themselves punished by consumers by they're simply just going to lose sales. That's too bad. This is a good article to read. The economic system of technocracy, by the way, demands that no person be left out. Thus, the global initiative to remove cash from society is not surprising, but we do know now that it's facing stiff resistance wherever it is being pushed. Dr. Tim Ball nailed it over the weekend with an article about AOC. That's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He nailed it with an article titled The Age of Insanity When an Ex-Barmaid Has a National Voice. The article starts out, it is a disturbing experience to listen to the rambling comments of a 30-year-old ex-barmaid, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC. As you listen to the ignorance, inaccuracies, and naive views, you understand why the Founding Fathers limited the age of eligibility for president to 35. The question is, why do her views receive so much attention? The answer is because a group of technocrats saw an opportunity to push non-issues onto the stage without the danger of association. It is a technique seen as essential for control in today's insane world. It is called plausible deniability, and Obama was probably as good a practitioner as any to date. Well, we've written about AOC and the Green New Deal multiple times, the Justice Democrats and the Young Turks and so on that are pushing this nonsense. But Tim Ball is absolutely right. An ex-barmaid can turn into a national voice on topics and subjects she knows nothing about, and people flock to her like the Pied Piper. Well, next up on the list, smart cities back in the news again. The headline, smart cities are already becoming AI-powered dystopias. Societies are undergoing subtle yet massive changes because constant surveillance causes people to modify their behavior. It's that simple. You might nix certain activities that are thought to result in negative outcomes and adopt new practices that are seen as positive. This is the wretched iron fist of Technocracy's science of social engineering. The article notes the implications of a person's exposure to constant identification aren't restricted to the state's use of the technology. At a consumer level, there is the potential for users to open themselves up to entirely new levels of targeted advertising. The implications of a person's exposure to constant identification aren't restricted to the state's use of the technology. At a consumer level, there is the potential for users to open themselves up to entirely new levels of targeted advertising through retailers' use of AI identification in stores. Quote, AI technology puts you in a particular place at a particular time as a consumer. The company knows you're there because you've used their AI technology to get there, whether that be a theater and an airport or an airplane, Mills explains. Think about it. They know you're there for the next 2 or 4 hours or whatever. So if they decide to, they can sell your data to somebody who wants to proactively market you. Do I think that limits the development of AI? I don't. Do I think they're going to want to ensure their privacy has been thought about? Absolutely. And following along the same line of dystopia, the article titled China Scores Ideological Coup as it Exports Social Engineering Technologies is pertinent. Cheap manufactured products are not China's primary exports these days, but social engineering technologies are. Authoritarian regimes around the world are eagerly adopting China's dystopian surveillance and censorship technologies, including of the internet, using data and manipulation to maintain their power. It's just that simple. The article states a swath of the world is adopting China's vision for a tightly controlled internet over the unfettered American approach, a stunning ideological coup for Beijing that would have been unthinkable less than a decade ago. Vietnam and Thailand are among the Southeast Asian nations warming to a governance model that twins sweeping content curbs with uncompromising data controls because it helps preserve the regime in power. A growing number of the region's increasingly autocratic governments watched enviously the emergence of Chinese corporate titans from Tencent Holdings to Alibaba Holding Group in spite of draconian online curbs. And now they want the same. Though that's no surprise. As America retreats on principles of liberty and freedom, China advances on the basis of autocratic social engineering. Not a good trend, but it is taking place. The last article today is probably the most disturbing. It's titled Frankenstein Designer Kits, What You Don't Know About Gender Transitioning. Now, the medical community today has become hardwired for gender transitioning of children as young as 5 years old, with drugs and hormones and surgeries that have lifelong physical and psychological consequences and even worse, serious health risks. And because the technocrat mind believes that humans are mere animals, there is no ethical problem with this, apparently. They experiment on children. Well, this kind of experimentation, including surgical manipulation, was viewed as horrifying during World War II, but now it's become commonplace and in fact embedded into the medical community. Puberty-blocking drugs, mastectomies, vaginal surgery, and fake penises, all with zero chance of reversal. These are just some of the radical experimental methods being used on children. The madness must stop, the author says. Imagine that you are a parent of a 5-year-old boy who innocently informs you one day that he is a girl. Of course, the natural reaction would be to laugh, not phone up the nearest gender transitioning clinic. You have no idea how your little boy came to believe such a thing. Possibly it was through something he heard at a daycare center or maybe a program he saw on television. In any case, he insists that he identifies as a female. Eventually, possibly at the encouragement of your local school, you pay a visit to a physician. You hope this medical professional will be able to provide you and your child with some sound counseling to clear up the confusion. Prepare yourself to be disappointed. Your doctor will be forced, according to state and medical dictate, to follow the professional guidelines known as, quote, affirmative care. It sounds nice and harmless, doesn't it? In fact, the program could be best described as nothing short of diabolical. Following the affirmative care approach, the doctor is required to follow your child's lead, not vice versa, as many people believe the doctor-patient relationship in this particular case would best work. In other words, if the child tells the doctor that he believes he is a girl, the doctor must comply with that quote-unquote reality, no matter what biology tells him or her to be the case. But this is just the beginning of the madness. As the child's parent, you will be encouraged to start referring to your son as your daughter and even permit him to choose a feminine name, as well as matching clothes. Teachers will be instructed to let your son use the girls' bathroom while at school. The question of the social stigma attached to such lifestyle change, complete with bullying, is rarely brought into the equation. Therapists will seldom discuss with the parents the social implications of such a mental and physical change. Indeed, many will insist the changes are reversible should the child one day have a change of heart. If only things were that easy. Let's pause for a moment and ask what should be the most obvious question, especially among medical professionals. Quote, is it not terribly naive to support the fleeting belief of a child who still believes in Santa Claus, that he or she is the opposite sex? Isn't there a very high possibility that the child is just confused and the thought will pass? Moreover, why did we never hear about such episodes just 10 years ago? Yet today we're led to believe it is some sort of epidemic. Instead of working with the child in his newfound identity from such an obvious approach, in the majority of cases, the child will be placed on the fast track to gender transitioning. This is where the horror story begins. In any case, today, thanks to the change in the medical profession and new legislation that's been brought in, your friendly neighborhood doctor is more likely to tell you that it's perfectly normal for your child to desire to be another sex. It's perfectly normal to go through the transitioning process because, after all, it's reversible. If you don't want to do that later on, you can change your mind and go back. Well, that's flat out not true. Scientists that are examining this whole process are realizing that when you start pumping hormones of the opposite sex into young children, it changes the structure and pattern of thinking in the child's brain. It changes organ function. In many cases, it's been shown to lead to cancer. And of course, when surgical procedures are applied later on as puberty sets in, those changes are absolutely positively irreversible. Parents are being sold a bill of goods. They're being deceived into thinking that it's perfectly normal and it should just be handled like any other medical issue. This is not true. These type of experiments on children simply need to stop. But again, I'll reiterate, because the technocrat mind believes that humans are mere animals, that they have no ethical problem with doing this. They need to be reminded that children are not animals, that people are not animals. They're people. And they were born with their gender. In any case, the medical experimentation on innocent children by a medical community that apparently does not understand the permanent damage done to children with early gender transitioning simply needs to stop. I'm Patrick Wood for Technocracy News and Trends. Have a great day.